Hi guys, this is Lo with Just Talking Tactical. So what we have here today is the Leatherman Free P4. This is one of the latest multi-tools that Leatherman's developed in the Free series. And they're also the T series, which I think they kind of tried to penetrate the Victorinox, you know, the normal single, like the Huntsman and everything. So what we'll do is we'll just open up this box, take a look at the tools, and we'll compare it with two other multi-tools, which will be my Swiss Tool X and my Surge. This is actually my second Surge. It's a second generation one where they did away with the jeweler screw instead. Anyway, let's just open this up and I'll show you what comes with the box. So you've got some features that they'll show you on the side, a bit of information here and there. These are all bits of information that you could actually find online. Now what's cool also is they give you a card here which shows you some of the features on the back. Okay, so let's take a look at the pouch first before we go to what this video is actually supposed to be about, right? So the pouch is the newer generation pouch. Of course, it's a bit of an improvement over the previous models. I found that with the previous models, the tool actually eats through the bottom of the pouch. And I've been using this is a very similar one, just that this is a little bit narrower to accommodate the P4 instead of the Surge. So I've been using this one, they're kind of using the same materials, even the same snap button lock. And as you can see, it's still got a decent amount of retention. It's not tearing here yet. It's not been eating through the bottom. The elastic band on the side, which gives it some retention, is still going strong. So this is actually a pretty good pouch. I'd say it's a huge improvement over the previous ones. Even the belt loops looks a lot stronger. It's bar tacked. I think it's more obvious in this one. Yep, you can actually take a look at it. There you go. So it's bar tacked, so it's pretty reinforced. I do wish they put MOLLE on this instead. Then it would give me an option to mount it to a backpack or a satchel, you know, things like that. But it is what it is, and it's still not a bad pouch. Just you're limited to wearing it at the waist. Just a bit of a waist. See what I did there? Okay, now let's look at just put the pouch aside. Let's look at the tool. One of the biggest features that people would like to try would, of course, be try to Bali flip it. And I kind of suck with that. There we go. Okay, so that's kind of what was marketed for the P4 or the new free series between the P4 and the P2. It is pretty cool. One reason that they can actually put a really loose pivot on this is that the magnets actually hold it in a closed position. If you can imagine the Surge, if it had a loose pivot as well, what would happen is, because there's nothing actually keeping it from being closed, it would fly out just the moment you take it out. So that's why they actually had to make it tight here, and that friction would actually prevent the tool from opening up. Is it super crucial that it's super smooth for you to flip it out? I don't think so, but it is still a pretty cool feature. One thing about the Free series, I'm sure you can actually already make this observation yourself, is that it looks a little bit more modern, looks a little bit more, I dare say, use the word hipster-ish, I suppose. But it feels a lot more urban. It feels like something you can actually bring around the city. It feels more refined, okay? Back in the day, let's just move these up. This guy would win the ticket as the guy, the refined multi-tool. Okay, it's nice and polished. It's got that beautiful snap open and the closing. I mean, this is just classic Victorinox. Beautiful. All right, so that's what we come to expect from Victorinox. It's very refined multi-tool. However, there are some features which we will discuss about that I wish it had, that the Surge, being the Brute, had. All right, so a few things before we move in on comparison. The opening. Now, if you see, all right, if you see, we've got a hook here, right there. Okay, it will ride up against this latch here until it pushes past the latch, and it will hook back onto the latch, and it'll stay in that locked position. I'm told that this guy can be opened and closed about 1,000,000 times, but who's counting, right? It can be opened and closed 1,000,000 times before it wears out and some maintenance is required. I was initially worried about how that may be because it is abrading, it is rubbing up against the latch before it actually breaks over and hooks onto the hook. Then I actually noticed that there's actually a rubber piece in there. Now what happens is, and it's really difficult for me to show this, but when you open it, the tool actually pops up and out, and that's what allows the tool to unlock. Now that being the case, there's actually not a lot of force being put between the hook and the latch itself because it's actually moving within that handle. In fact, you can actually see it move a little bit. We can try to get that on camera. Alright, it's really slight, but it does happen, and that does give it the opportunity to actually open up. So that's pretty cool, and that would actually reduce the wear on the latch and the hook significantly. I've actually also had people ask me, is there a plastic on the tool itself? Yes, there is. Right here. Now that actually is where the magnet's housed. Okay, now this is top down. Okay, there you go. It's what houses the magnet, it's what keeps it closed. So that's pretty cool. The other part that's non-metallic is going to be again the rubber bumper in here. And I think that's pretty much it as far as plastic's concerned. I did not notice anything else. One thing though, the plier is super smooth. A lot smoother than the one on the Surge, right? This guy just feels man, again, this isn't refined, but it's going to be a tough user kind of thing, which is why I loved it in the first place. The Victorinox, it's very smooth, but it's not loose. Okay, like it's not gonna drop. It's not gonna drop out, but this one would. See? All right, so that's really smooth. I wonder, and I've actually not confirmed, I probably should have read up on it a little bit before, but I wonder if they're actually using bearings in here. I've heard cases where people would, you know, try to cut something really hard with the wire cutters, and it kind of binds up the pivot on the plier and it becomes really tight. So maybe the bearings in there, I'm not sure. I'm told that if that does happen, just move it side to side a bit and probably it would unbind. Hopefully that is the case. I've actually seen one bind up, and with some oil it did loosen up a bit, but it never loosened back up at this point. So that's just another thing to take note of. I've cut some really thick stuff with this guy, and it's already tight to begin with, so you know, being tight after, kind of no-brainer. All right, let's compare the 4 tools on the outside, or the 4 main tools for multi-tools. Okay, and that would be the blade. So the blade on these guys. Right, so one of the things that I was not very happy with the Victorinox was that it did not have a one-hand opening feature, but you can access all the tools on the outside. On the Leatherman, you have the one-hand opening feature, but the rest of the tools are on the inside, so you gotta open it up, pull out the tool, close it back again, and then only use it. So the P4 actually has a combination and best of both worlds that's concerned. All the additional tools are also on the outside, but the main tool, which is also on the outside, is single-handed. You know, you can basically open it with one hand. Very cool. Another thing to take note, these guys, let's just look at the tool here. If you were to open one of your tools, what would happen is, if you'll take note, it would actually depress the lock. Okay, see the lock just move down. All right, so the locking retention is on the lock itself, and I think it's the same on this guy as well. So if you open up the tool, you can see the lock move. All right, so the retention is also on the lock. But for these guys, the additional small tools, the retention is not on the lock. Okay, you can pull it up until about here, and the lock's not moved yet. And if you push it past, then only it starts to depress the lock. So what keeps the tools locked in is the magnet. It's pretty ingenious, if you ask me. It's pretty cool. I like how they thought about that. Okay, so veering off topic here. Knife. The knife. Okay. So we made the comparison right off the bat. The Surge is the longest, and let's check the Victorinox. Oh wow, it's actually about the same length. Okay, from the sharpening choil to the tip, it's about the same length. Whereas this guy is a good, how many cm long is that? It looks like it's about a cm plus longer than the Free P4, but still a very usable length. I've definitely gotten away with using a blade length like this. Now the scissors is a big deal for me. It is a big reason why I never went for the Wave and why I went straight up for the Surge despite the size. You know, everyone's always put off by the size of the Surge. But for me, the deal breaker with the Wave was the size of the scissors. It's tiny, you can barely do anything with it. It looks like you've got the biggest and toughest scissors on the Surge, followed by, it's a bit of a toss-up between the two. Blade length of the scissors looks like it's the longest on the Swiss Tool X though. Let's just compare that a bit. Yep, it's longer by quite a bit as well. Alright, so you've got a longer scissor on this, and comparing these two, yeah, it's just a hair shorter. It looks like it's about 1.5 to 2 millimeters shorter in scissor blade length compared to the Surge, between the P4 and the Surge. So this guy will have the shortest one. However, the spring system on the Victorinox is what annoys me. I've had cases where this guy will pop open like this, and now I actually have to open it back up and then use a scissor again. That doesn't really happen with the Surge style spring, which is pretty cool that they actually brought it along to the P4. However, I've actually seen, I think, a handful of cases where the hole on the inside of the spring here actually wore away to the point where there would be no tension on the spring, and then that would have to be replaced. It's a lot easier to replace this one, spring on this one. You can just buy it anywhere. There's a Victorinox distributor. But this one, I know how to do it, but yeah, Leatherman probably wouldn't be happy about me doing that. And it's on my previous tool. I've not touched this one yet, I swear. Okay, let's also look at the fittings before I forget. This guy uses standard torques. So you can actually adjust this one. This one uses, of course, as we all know, the safety torques. Okay, so there's a pin in the center there. And this one uses nothing, just rivets. I do find that annoying because I do like to maintain, I like to fiddle around with my tools. Disassemble, clean, oil, and assemble back again. Can't do it with this guy. Too bad. Okay, so we've done the knife, we've done the scissors. Let's look at the saw. Well, serrated blade. Okay, fine. What's cool about this serrated blade though, it's a tanto shape. That's cool. But I think they designed this to be more of a chisel. You can actually see there's a chisel up over there. So I think it's designed more to be as a chisel, so you can put it there and just basically push it. That way, you know, you can get some different work done. I don't think they intentionally designed this to be a tanto. All right, then moving on now to the saw. The saw on the Surge is actually, I think, would be the winner, because you can actually remove it. You know, these are tools that once they go dull, you really don't want to try and sharpen them yourself. It's going to actually be very difficult. You have to sharpen each tooth individually. On the Surge, it's as simple as just throwing it away. You can use any Bosch jigsaw, just pop it back out, pop a new one in, and you're fine. In terms of length, the Victorinox is the longest, and the Free is just a little bit shorter. You know, we're going to measure the teeth, right? So it's up until here. So it's just a little bit shorter than the Surge. So again, this guy comes out as the shortest. Now that may not necessarily be a bad thing, because it just means it's a little bit more portable. Okay, so now let's look at all the other tools. Okay, so you've got the flathead and the Phillips. Now it's pre-standard Phillips, but there's one pretty cool thing about the driver on this guy. Let's just pull out all the large flat heads of all the tools so we can make this comparison. It's a bit of a pain when you got fat fingers and you're dealing with small parts here. I know that's a joke in there somewhere. So as you can see, the P4 comes in as the thickest, followed by the Swiss X and then the Surge. Alright, so you've got a nice thick chunk of steel for the flathead screw here. Alright, and you'll also notice that it's actually beveled. So this is meant to be a box cutter. I might sharpen this one day. We'll see. The Phillips, just for the record, is equally as thick. Okay, now on the Surge, again, you've got multiple flatheads. You've got a small one, you've got a thick one, you've got the awl, and you've got this. This is something that the other two tools don't have. This is the bit driver. I did find it a shame that the Free P4 did not come with this. This is actually a super cool feature to have. If you've got the Leatherman bit kit, you can swap it out with torque screws and such, which is pretty cool. However, in the few years that I've been using a Surge, both my first one and this one, the second one, I've actually never really used the bit driver. In fact, the bit driver on my first Surge, the spring popped out and I had to basically tape this guy up, shove it in and keep it locked in based on tension. How I do use this now is if I wanted to use a flathead, I'll use the one on this side. If I wanted to use a Phillips, I'll use the one on this side, and I won't even swap it out. So to me, having a bit kit here, kind of moot point, but still a feature that I really like. A bit of a peeve with between the first generation Surge and this one, the latest generation Surge, is that they did away with the jeweler screw. I wear glasses, so it would have been advantageous for me to have the jeweler screw so that I can actually adjust it, or screw something back if a screw popped out. Happened to me before, true story. So a bit of a bummer, but it is what it is. All these other tools also don't have the jeweler screw. That sucks, but again, it is what it is. Okay, one cool observation that I noticed is the bottle opener, can opener. Okay, so if you'll notice, now these two are Leathermans, right? If you notice, Leatherman did away with their traditional can opener and went with what Victorinox has. I find that odd. I know some people actually prefer the Victorinox style can opener, but I actually prefer the Leatherman ones. I've used them both and they both work. That goes without saying. However, per pass, I can actually cut more of the can because it's actually got more cutting edge on the Leatherman one compared to the Victorinox one. Alright, there's more cutting length, which means I don't have to reset and torque as many times on the can with a Surge as I did with the Victorinox. And now the P4 has taken that as well. I don't know, I'm kind of impartial to this. I do prefer this one, but this one works as well, so I'm cool with both. Yep. Okay, now let's look at this. The awl next. Okay, so I don't really use the awl, but I've got a friend who does, and he's saying the P4 one is actually pretty effective. This one's a bit too short. Again, I don't really use it, so I can't really comment. That's just a bit of comparison between all of them. I should also sharpen this one day, I suppose. So the file on the Free P4 is, to be honest, a little bit tragic. It's really small and it's just an iron file. On the Victorinox, you've got a nice big, full-size, well, for multi-tool at least, file. And again, you've got the single direction ones and the other one. It's also got a file on the side, just like how the Leatherman one has one as well. This is another part. I like to use the saw and the file on my tools. And having to choose between one or the other on the Surge kind of sucks. I wish that they made the exchangeable tool be between the serrated blade and the saw, because I just about never use the serrated blade. So that's like a wasted spot right there for me. But okay, going back to the file, there are, there's a file on the side as well, just like the Vic. However, this one does not have that. So Leatherman comes on top on this one because it's got a diamond file to go with it. It's pretty cool. This one doesn't as well. These are just normal iron files. The ruler on this is probably the worst one. It's so short, it's kind of useless. Yeah, I guess you could measure small stuff with it if that's what you're into. I would have to say that the Victorinox has the nicest ruler of them all. It's easy to read, it's very flat, it's very easy to use. The Leatherman one, I know it's probably my fault that I decided to go to black oxide, which makes it difficult to see. However, because it's on the inside, I have to open it up. And it's a little bit difficult to see the numbers as well. So if, oops, that was out of frame. So if I was actually trying to measure with this, it might be a bit of a pain in the butt, even if it was a satin version. Have I had to use a ruler before? Absolutely. And this one, definitely a lot nicer to use where the ruler is concerned. Okay, let's talk about taking out the tools. I think the Victorinox one would probably be the worst, having to use nail nicks. Like, I just cut my nail, so it's a bit of pain in the butt for me to actually pull it out. In certain cases, you might actually break your nail. And before you guys start hurling insults about, breaking nails being a girly kind of thing, telling me to man up, don't forget that if, in certain cases, when you do break your nail, you do bleed. And if that does happen in a setting, an unhygienic setting, and it starts to, get infected, then, well, it's not really about manning up anymore. It's just a practical thing. So do take care of that. And also do take note that that is one of the issues of pulling out a tool with this. See that happen again. So that kind of sucked with that. Second place, I would give it to this guy. I know they did say that this is supposed to be easier to open. And if you're doing it two-handed, I suppose. One-handed, not really. You will tear up your nails with that, but you can still do it. On the Surge is probably the easiest, because it's got a lot of hook to purchase. All right, so it's really easy to purchase, and it's not too sharp, doesn't really tear up your nails. Of course, it's not entirely fair because this is already loose. Right, see that there, that just happened. Now, if you compare the locking open method, we know that this one has that latch and hook type system. So when it locks on, that's how it actually allows you to open and close it. It locks the thing in place and you can open and close it easily. On this guy, however, the way it locks open is based on friction. All right, there are actually two prongs over there that when you push up, it gets pushed aside, and as you go further up, it rubs up against the side of the inner housing, and when it reaches the very end here, it's pushed out at its maximum. So it's kind of locking based on friction. This one runs on friction as well, and the way it works is you've got this bar here which acts as a torsion bar, and when you push it up, it starts to push that up, and when it reaches the back here, it kind of releases all that tension and it locks open. But this is again also based on friction. So these two are kind of based on friction. This one has that hook onto it. I've not really had an issue with this one, but with the Leatherman I actually have, where the pivot on the handle is a lot looser than the pivot on the plier itself. So it's not going to happen with this one because it's actually fairly new, but I'm just going to simulate it. So what happens is when you go to open your plier, because it's a lot tighter here than it is here, this gives. And when you try to open the jaw, it doesn't move. So that I've actually seen that happen with the Surge, the Supertool 300, the rebar, and maybe not the Wave, but I'm sure it can happen in that as well. So it's pretty cool that this guy actually latches open, and chances of that happening, I would say very, very limited, especially since how the pivot is actually really, really smooth. One cool thing that this guy brought over from the Surge is the removable wire cutters. They are the same size, and I do believe they are made from 154 cm steel, which is a pretty hard stainless steel. I think optimal hardness is about 59 HRC. I'm not sure what these guys do it to. The Swiss X does not have that feature. Now, if you were to cut something particularly hard and you dinged up the wire cutter blade, these guys you can change out very easily. They sell the wire cutter bits. This guy, no. You kind of have to send it back for them to fix it for you. I'm not sure if they do it for free. Like, is it warrantyable? I don't know. Maybe some of you have an experience with that and could probably share it with us. But it's Victorinox, and they are a very reputable brand, so they would definitely take care of you. The question would be whether they would pay for it or whether you would have to pay for it. I think it's the latter. More often than not, it is. Oh, let's just compare the sizing of the pliers. Alright. So straight up, right off the bat, you can tell that the Surge is of course bigger than the Free, and it's not a very scientific comparison here in terms of size, because where does it start, right? But yeah, it's a bit smaller than the than the Swiss X as well. Alright, so let's do a bit of a size comparison. This is the Surge, and as we can tell, it's actually a little bit smaller. The P4 is actually a little bit smaller than the Surge, and the Swiss X is also a little bit bigger. Now, if you were to put the Wave here, which again I don't have, I think it would be a little bit smaller than the P4. Putting the P4 in between the Wave and the Surge. Now, I've had people who wanted to get a Surge but it was too big. They wanted the Surge because of the features, the big scissors, etc, etc, but it was too big and it was too heavy. And the Wave had that puny scissors, which wasn't really cool, and it didn't have replaceable wire cutters, and etc, etc. So it's less of a tool, but it was a nice size to carry. Now we've got a P4 that has the best of both worlds. So I think this is gonna be, I'm gonna start carrying this actually. Maybe we'll have one of those extended reviews in the future. But I can tell it's gonna do fairly well. Probably gonna be a toughness or durability type review. So that's the size from this plane. If we looked at it from the side, let's compare these two first. The Surge is actually, hang on. The Surge is actually a little bit thicker, just by a bit, than the P4. That side has a pocket, the lanyard clip. These two are about the same size, same thickness. Height, we've already measured that, and now let's measure width. Okay, so you can see that there's a little bit more material on the Surge here. All right, so the Surge overall is more of a beast. It's definitely a lot larger. Save the blade, the body is actually a little bit broader on the Swiss X compared to the P4. So this guy is a nice compact little size. I do look forward to using it extensively. I am told that it is going to be just as tough as the Surge, and that's quite a bit to live up to, because we know how durable and how tough these guys are. So we'll see how that pans out in the future. All right, so that is my initial thoughts on the Free P4 and comparing it to two of the other tools that I've actually tried out. And again, this is the larger version in its class, in its category, the small one being the Spirit, and this one also is again the larger version compared to the Wave, the Surge, and this one is the bigger one compared to the P2. So they are technically all contemporaries. Alright, so thank you guys for watching. If you like to support me, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll put some links down in the description where you can buy all these things, all these cool stuff. It's basically Amazon links, so whatever that whatever you purchase, we do get a cut from there. Alright, so again, thank you guys for watching. Anything you guys have, just put it up in the comments, and I'll catch you all around.